graduates that are going to be graduating soon. I really think by May, hopefully, companies are going to go back to trying to, because we have to work as companies. We can't just not perform, not make things, not create things, not produce things, because we have to make money for our employees. We have to make money for our stockholders, and there's a lot of things that have to happen. The economy can't sustain a year of this, or even 6 months. So I believe that at the end of, I would say, the second quarter, things will get, I wouldn't say back to normal, but I think companies are going to have to start working again. And I know on my end, a lot of my clients, they're putting things on hold just because of the shutdown and the shelter in place. But as soon as that's lifted, I think they're going to go back to, starting the jobs back up and wanting to start producing. We do small light manufacturing facilities for Tesla. And so they've put one small project on hold, but they're thinking as soon as the shelter in place is lifted, they're going to go back to building these facilities, which means more people. So I think it's a temporary thing. That's and I'm out of when I was talking to you, Alexis, out of 50 clients right now, we only have 2 that have put projects on hold. So you can see that there's still a lot of activity out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective. And I would say, too, to address some of the concerns around, waiting to hear back, not necessarily hearing. I think that we're all trying to navigate this new normal. So I think as we're going remote, as in education, I think you can expect the employers are experiencing the same thing. So just because you haven't heard back doesn't necessarily mean that they're rescinding offers. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not interested in you as a candidate. It's just, I think that the first order of business is trying to keep going their deliverables, so the projects that they're working on, and trying to move those remote. So just to offer that big picture,
Yeah.
we're all transitioning.
So just to let you know what companies are doing these last really 2 weeks, all we've been doing is really trying to determine policy. How do we take care of our people? How do we take care of visitors? How do we take care of our clients to keep them all safe? And so I know senior management, anyone who's in the human resources, they've been extremely busy. I've had meetings literally almost 4 to 6 hours long, just discussing policy changes, discussing contract changes, language changes because of this new pandemic. So again, I believe it is temporary. I think as far as, are we going to go back to normal? No, I don't think, I think the social distancing and the hygiene, I think that's going to be, almost, we need to create that as a habit, and just understanding that there, I mean, even if you look at when we get a flu in our office, that can literally take down 5% of our office. And I think we've learned from this that we can distance ourselves a little bit, still have that personal relationship with our peers, but washing your hands and not doing things that could possibly infect you from, like I said, even the flu or a cold. Because wintertime we do get a lot of people with even the flu. So it is a new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So next one, do you have any particular advice for students or recent grads as they navigate the job and internship search, at this time?
Yeah, I mean, now if you're a recent grad, I wouldn't even look for an internship. I would look for a full-time position. But this goes into the interview process, which we can discuss it now, or I know there's some later down, in your email, we can discuss that later. But right now, even though, you're just seeing, what we're 10 days into the shelter in place. This is temporary, and I guarantee you it is simply that. I mean, if you look at the stock market, things are coming back up, and it was the initial scare. That's why toilet paper and water went away. I don't know why toilet paper went away, but there was an initial scare. People just didn't know what to expect. Companies are doing the same things, but eventually people are going to get more comfortable. And I hate to say it, but it's going to go back to, we have to work. The companies have to, go back to work. So as far as internships and new positions, companies right now, like my company, I could hire 20 people, and the next week I would look for 20 more. So we are looking for people. We're looking for good people. All companies right now, it is a boom in the economy, even though you're feeling like, we're going to have this major work stoppage and 30% unemployment. If it is, to me, it's a very temporary thing. What are we doing as a company right now? We had some people that we were interviewing, and we're actually proceeding, and we're going to hire them with the onboarding and everything. If some of them have decided, hey, can we wait until middle of April? Can we wait until May? We're letting them do that, but we have not stopped as a company hiring people.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would say too, I'm still hearing back from folks from industry who are emailing me and letting me know they still have opportunities. So in regards to the question of like, is anyone still hiring? Are they still looking? I mean, I think the answer is yes. Maybe not in certain industries, hospitality, I think perhaps not, but in engineering, there are certainly sections which are doing really well right now, right? If biomedical, et cetera. So we can actually address, interviewing if you would like to a little bit. I think that has been a question that's come up, or even just what are some qualities as people are navigating the job and internship search to stand out?
Sure. So the first thing you want to do is you want to look at your resume, right? I mean, there's a few things. I know I'm talking to a lot of fourth-year students, one recent grad, but and I think a couple of second year and one. I think we have one first year. We only have one first year, but so let me talk a little bit about how to build a good resume so that you can sell yourself, whether it's in an interview or on paper. So to me, it starts with school. It starts with how you're doing in class. I mean, keep one thing in mind. Companies out there, unless your dad, owns a company and you're now interviewing at your dad's company, it's a little different. But most companies don't know who you are. So the only thing that you have is really that piece of paper that tells you about yourself. So how do you build that good piece of paper, that resume, that's going to, not only show that you're the cream of the crop, but it's going to make you stand out in a crowd. That's what companies are going to look for. I mean, we have, 50 resumes, and it's our job. And do you remember when you were applying for school? It's the same thing. The school admissions people, they're looking at these different applications, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to just show yourself the best that you can. So obviously, fourth-year students, I hope you did a great job in getting good grades. That's always important. And I know that that does what is when a company looks back and sees that you've got a 3.8 or a 4.0 or 3.5 or 1.5, what does that tell the company? Well, it tells the company, A, this guy is serious, or this guy, I mean, we all went to college. We know the guys that, got the 2.0s, and we know what they were doing. And and now, are there people that had the 2.0s and are very successful? Yes, there are. But, typically companies are looking for the safe hire. We're not going to go out of and say, yeah, this guy could be the next, Bill Gates. Well, that's a rare find. So we're going to always look at the safe hire. So, hey, try to get, try to do the best you can in school. Study hard. I know a lot of students, if you struggle in class, just make sure you're getting some tutorship. I know Cal Poly has a great program of tutorships, and a lot of other students can help. Try to be involved with your classmates. Do a good job on your grades. The second thing that I always say is try to be involved in a club, and you probably have a student club on campus that is towards your major, is kind of helps these students. What clubs do is they get you involved in, believe it or not, in the industry early, because what happens is you can start inviting companies and people to come in and start talking about their company, and that way you can actually introduce yourself. A lot of great resumes that I see are students that were officers in the club. They show leadership skills. They have the ability to speak and communicate with others, get along with others. That's really important in a company. We look for someone who's going to get along with others. So so that's kind of the background of building your resume. Now, when you write your resume, it's a little different. Now, what I'm looking for is, I want a resume that looks professional. Something that's going to, again, you want something that's going to stand out, that when I see Jason Martinez's resume, that his name is there. There's a phone number. A lot of resumes we see, we don't see a phone number, email address. Those are really important today. That's a lot of times that's how we communicate with you now. But then go into, don't be too wordy. A lot of us, we have literally not even minutes to review a resume. We have, maybe seconds to review a resume, and we'll go through it real quick. I know my head of human resources, she'll go through 50 resumes in a day, and she's doing other things, so she's gonna thumb through a resume real quick, but what she's looking for are trigger words, things that's gonna attract her real quick. That's why, don't be too wordy. Bullet points are great. If you want to show some of your interests or some of the classes that you've taken, do it in a bullet setting as opposed to long sentences. We don't have time to read a 4-page resume for an entry-level position. Be precise, but to the point. If you're going to say something about what your objective is or what you've done for a senior project, just keep it real simple, keep it real short. Use proper grammar. I can't tell you how important that is. Even though we're engineers, I think most of us are all engineers, and sometimes our writing skills are not the best. Alexis is probably great, because I don't think she's an engineer, but for most of us, we're terrible at writing. So make sure that you do a good job in your resume, use proper grammar, spell things right, spell the company that you're pursuing. There was a question in regards to cover letters. You know, your cover letters should be short, to the point, but it should be specific to the company or to the person you're trying to address. Don't make it a generic cover letter, because that's very impersonal. Cover letters should, you know, really summarize your resume, but hit it quick, real short, and to the point, and try to be specific as to who you're addressing.
100%. If you don't mind me
Sure.
coming in really quick. So just so you all know, if you didn't know, we're still doing, resume review, cover letter review. You're always welcome to email that to me. You can also email it to careercounseling@cpp.edu. And so we're here to support you. So if you write your resume and you're still thinking like, I'm not sure if the grammar's okay, or I don't know if I'm being, brief enough, am I being too wordy? Is this going to pass that 8-second glance over test to keep me in the, they still want to, interview me pile? You don't have to guess about that. We're here to support you with that. Cover letters too, same sort of thing. Okay, and so Paul, another question for you. I think we're getting a lot of questions maybe in people's minds about what would it look like to be that competitive resume in this environment, where there's a lot of uncertainty. I think, a piece of advice I'm saying is like, really do work on your application packages right now. Really do work on your LinkedIn profile. Really do work on this virtual networking that we get to do. So, kudos to all of you for being here. This is networking. You're looking, at all of the people who are here right now. Know that these people are in it with you. Your classmates are in this with you. And so just really focusing on that, I think in this time especially, because networking is always a really, really powerful tool for your professional development. 80% of jobs are found through a network. So I was wondering if you had any feedback, on that piece. What can they do right now to just sort of develop professionally? I think for some of these students, they might be involved in clubs that are no longer meeting, perhaps, right? And so, what would it look like to develop professionally from your perspective, remotely?
Sure. I think sessions like this is very important. There are still other forms of meetings that you could develop yourself. You could. There's a lot of executives, a lot of companies out there that they're not doing 100% of their duties. So it might be a good time to have your club ask for a Zoom meeting with somebody in the industry. And it does not have to be top level executive. It could be someone who's a, middle manager, lower manager, even second year entry level position. But what you want to do is you want to start talking to them about, hey, how is your job going? What, can you tell us as a group, how were the first 2 years of working in this industry or working for this company? And when Alexis talks about networking, that's what you want to do, is try to talk to as many people as you can, because what happens is you start understanding. I think a lot of the biggest challenges for entry-level people is they get into a company that they're not happy with, or get into a career that they're not happy with. So it's really, right now is probably a good time to talk to some entry-level people, and maybe, someone that that's maybe 3 years into their career, and ask them, hey, that's a similar career that I'm looking at. What are the pros and cons? Do you like it? The company, do you like working? What do you like about working for that company? Because, it's going to be frustrating for you if you get into a company and that's not the company that is going to make you happy, because it's you're doing yourself. You spend a year there, so you've done yourself a disservice. Plus, you've done the company a disservice. So really, try to do some research on exactly what it is you want to do. And if you don't know, you should talk to people who are doing it right now and ask them the questions that you have. If you like the outdoors, working in an office atmosphere, 8 to 10 hours a day probably isn't the best job for you. Or if you like the indoors and you're a civil engineer and you're out there, surveying, all day long, that's not the job for you. So really understand what it is. Now, having said that, just know that different positions have different requirements. So that's why, you start understanding the first, second year entry level positions, and then maybe if you can talk to people who have a little more experience, 5, 10 years, and really what I would do is I would talk to the people who really enjoy their work, and there's a lot of opportunities in networking. Maybe it's your church, your synagogue, or a social place where you can, Zoom is free. You can sign up for Zoom, and you can do. People are willing to talk right now. They'd love to talk. They'd love to talk about their career. It's a great opportunity. A lot of them right now are watching YouTube, Dancing with the Stars or whatever they watch on that. But they're spending a lot of time where if they could speak with entry level and college students about their career paths, I think they would be more than happy to. So look for those people. Look for, and Alexis, maybe you can gather some names of people in the industry that would be willing to even do a one-on-one with, and it's not an interview. All it is you asking them, hey, what do you like about your job? What don't you like about your job?
Yeah, it's really, really true. Thanks so much for saying that. And so what I would say too, we've talked a little bit about networking. I know you're all muted, but feel free to unmute. How many of you feel comfortable, identifying some people to network with? Because, as Paul said, this is a really great time to potentially do some of the outreach. People are working in a different way. And what I've seen on LinkedIn is a lot of professionals posting, if you have questions, if you're a student, you're graduating class of 2020, I'm happy to sit down with you for 15 minutes on the phone. And so just out of curiosity, if you wouldn't mind sharing, unmuting for a second, what are your strategies for connecting with industry professionals?
I feel comfortable with the initial reaching out, but it's that continued connection that I'm kind of unsure about. Should I contact them here? Then I don't want to be too much of a bother to them. I don't want to contact them at, an unnecessary time, or sometime I might be a burden to them. I want to be respectful of their time, and I guess it might trigger some irrational fear of me being a burden or something like that. Any advice to that?
Sure.
You want to? I can talk a little bit. I think that's a great outlook because yes, if I had 50 entry-level students calling me, that might get a little irritating. But I think what you want to do is try to email them is a great way to communicate. That's not intrusive, that they can read it on their own time, and you can establish a relationship with someone with just emailing them and say, hey, if you don't have time, would you mind me talking to someone who's in, that have done this career for 3 years, and then you communicate with them, but it doesn't have to be that person. The great thing about networking is you're opening yourself up to talking to others and helping and letting the others. They may not have time for you, but they're, even a recruiting person at a company might be able to pass you to a person that, hey, and you can spend some time even with them, and understanding the company, and they love to talk. So that's a really, to me, a good resource, is understanding who the recruiters are for certain companies, and they'd be willing to spend, half an hour with you on the phone, or an hour with you on the phone. And then you can ask them, hey, could I speak to another person in your company to get some insight? And they could give you, they could easily either give you their email, or they'd be happy to set up lunch with them. I've seen that a lot. Not today,
Not now,
obviously,
yeah.
not now, but definitely Zoom. They'd be open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, being respectful of people's time. And Joshua, thanks for sharing, how you feel about sort of the outreach. I know it can feel a little awkward, but I would say, the people who I've done informational interviews with for career, for personal things, I just try to reach out about every 3 months just to follow up and say thank you. Based on the advice you gave me last time, this is the progress I've made. I'm really thankful. And so it's more just being thankful and keeping the relationship alive that way. And whenever you can add value too, I mean, some of you are leaders in your organization. So, as you're talking to this person, gaining more insight into the industry and asking, what are some of the challenges that you're facing? It might be something that actually you could help with potentially. If they're saying it's really hard for us to find a good pipeline of talent, for example, you can say, I'm actually part of this club, and we would love it if you came in to speak, and just if you wanted to get your company more exposure, things like that. You could be creative too, or just, being a fan of their company, following them on LinkedIn, like sharing the posts that they're making. So if you can add value to them as well, I think that's a really good strategy at keeping, the relationship alive. And then also not feeling like a burden.
Yeah, and Joshua, I think that's what you pointed out is great, because a lot of people believe that if you email this person, or if you even leave them a message, that's too intrusive, or it really isn't. It's actually to me impressive that a student is willing to reach out, and they're concerned about their career, or they're interested in their career. Believe it or not, companies are impressed with that. I had one student from Cal Poly, and he actually reached out to me on LinkedIn, and he said, hey, I'm graduating in May. What do you think about interviewing me? And I ignored it for a couple times, and then finally I said, I'm going to answer him, because he pursued me a couple more times, and he's still, I think we've had him for 5 years. He's a terrific, and it shows that he was willing to actually, he was interested enough in this career and in our company. And it was somewhat, not only flattering, but it was, it kind of shows his dedication a little bit.
Yeah. And something that you shared with me the last time we met, Paul, that sort of imprinted itself on my mind, is this idea that attitude is so important, right? When you're meeting with someone and you're hearing about them.
Yeah, that was I was gonna talk a little bit more about the interview process, and I know right now, I don't know too many companies that are having interviews. We do have Zoom interviews, or some kind of a FaceTime interview, but to me, one of the questions, Alexis, that you asked was, what's the most impressive thing that you've seen or heard in an interview? Obviously, we've seen interviews, we've seen, student club presidents coming in with 4.0s, and, they were the quarterback on the football team. I mean, these guys are impressive, but that's not the everyday resume that you get, or the interview that you get. He's the president of his club. You're expecting that he's going to be dynamic, but most of us aren't the president of the student club. So how do you interview well? Well, I think what companies are looking for, obviously, that's why the resume is important. It shows that you're smart, shows that you're done a good job in your college career, and you've got some experience. That's going to immediately, if you have experience and you've got good grades, that's going to put you up at the top, 10, 15% immediately. You'd be amazed what that does to you, that the having a little bit of experience, whether it's an internship or you spent a couple summers doing this, whether it's for a company that you just seeked out, or even if it's for your uncle's company. Experience is experience. Alexis, the good attitude, that's something that I can't teach you. Me as a business owner, even as a college professor, I can't teach you to have a good attitude or have a good work ethic. That you have to have yourself. That is something innate in yourself. And what you want to do is you want to exude that in the interview. You want to almost, show. Obviously, it's hard to tell somebody, oh, I have a great work ethic. How do you show that you have a good work ethic? Well, in many cases, you show it by, what you did your last 4 years in school. How did you do? But good work ethic is really important. Another one that I think is really important is stability. Companies are looking for people that are stable, that if they hire you, they know that, this guy's, we know Matthew's going to be with us for the next, because look at his resume, look at what he's done. He's very stable. And we had one kid, and this is from experience, who you look at, he interviewed very well, and he wooed some of the people that were interviewing him, but and we kind of ignored his history a little bit, but his history showed some instability. He changed colleges twice, he changed majors twice, and he was a little older, so he didn't finish in time, but his interview was well. Guess what happened? He worked for us for 2 years and then changed careers. So that's going to set, and we're not the only company that has heard that. To me, showing your stability in your resume is really important, and in your life, being a stable person, that's what companies are looking for. Again, keep one thing in mind. We are looking for that safe hire. We're looking for someone, unless it's through word of mouth. Again, the networking is very important. That's why if you're interviewing and you've been recommended by someone who the company, let's say he's a middle manager in the company, that's going to be so many points. I mean, I can't tell you how many people that have had a recommendation from one of our people that we have not hired, because that really, you're looking through, 100 resumes, and there's this one that this guy knows, that he recommends him. That always helps. Let me see.
So, I know I sent you so many questions. We definitely don't have to go through all of them, but I wanted to reopen the floor. I think we've been getting a couple questions in the chat. So let's see. So Brianne asked, if interns are laid off this summer, what are chances of offers being extended for next summer? My inclination would be that this is very, very company dependent, right? Would you agree, Paul? I think that it really.
Oh yeah. I don't, keep one thing in mind. Interns, companies want interns. Obviously interns with experience are very valuable. Again, I believe that in this state, internships have to be paid. Interns have to be paid. So I don't think there are any non-paid internships in California. I don't think that's allowed. I'm not sure if that's correct, Alexis, but
There's
if
pretty strict guidelines federally around what would constitute an okay situation for an internship to be paid. It would have to be like very much tied to their course, or it's all of these criteria. So you're on the right track. They should, for the most part, be paid.
yeah. So Brianne, interns are for companies are a great way to not only look for, you know, people, and internships are perfect for that because they can hire them during the summer, get to know them, get to know their personality, their work ethic, and it's a, you know, internships will pay anything from minimum wage to $15-20 an hour. So, you know, in the span of 3 months, you know, your companies are willing to invest that in an intern. So it's not, so to me, I almost hire 100% of the interns that interview with us because it's a good way to really get to know them. And then in the meantime, you know, we're teaching them something, and they're getting something out of it, and we're getting something out of it. So internships, I think, are great for companies to hire, pre-hire people that they say, hey, you know, this Brianne is going to be a great hire, you know, but let's test her this summer. And to me, that's companies who don't hire interns are, you know, go somewhere else. But good companies will hire interns just because it is that important for us.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. I think I'm hearing that from a lot of employers, that internships are this really great way to get those enthusiastic, good attitude people and mold them in a way, right? Like help them to develop professionally, invest in them. And then statistics show that there's higher rates of satisfaction for the intern. They tend to stay longer if they do receive that full-time offer. It's something like 50% of them stay on for 5+ years. So there's a lot of benefits to doing that kind of experiential learning, you know, with a company. Sujala asked,
yeah, and believe it or not, not every student that graduates from college has internship history. And so just by having an internship already puts you, you know, above your peers. So that's really important because that experience cannot be, you know, somebody without experience, somebody with experience, you know, equal in every way else, their grades. We're going to hire the person with experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think in this time, as people are feeling anxious about, you know, they've received internship offers, they're currently applying for internships. Absolutely, I would say just keep going. I don't think that we have a reason at the moment to say, you know, give up. If people are giving up on the internship search, that means that your application is going to be that much, you know, more visible, right? So my encouragement to you would be to keep going in spite of all of this, but to really leverage that networking piece so that you know, can learn more about the industry, so that you can be a little more intentional, I think, in that search process too. So Sujala asked, how is the scope for recent mechanical engineers with industry experience at KPRS? I don't know if this is applicable.
Yeah, no, that's applicable. Believe it or not, we have mechanical engineers. Keep one thing in mind. Don't, again, I want the students to understand that they need to work in an environment that is conducive to their personal growth, you know, not only your person as a human, but also your financial growth. Those two are, you know, I mean, we have students that come in, recent graduates that'll come in and they say, you know what, we have to make a certain amount, and you know, that's, and believe it or not, that sometimes that rubs off the wrong way. We have other entry level that will come in and say, hey, you know what, I just want to get, let's say they didn't apply for an internship ever, and they graduated, and now, you know, they happen to get an interview. Come in there with a great attitude. Come in there that you're willing to learn. You know, you'll start at you know, whatever salary the company, but your goal is to grow with the company. That's very impressive for us. That's somebody that says, okay, maybe, you know, he didn't do things right, but he's willing to do what it takes now. And so in terms of mechanical engineering, I have mechanical engineers that work for us. Companies are not always so black and white in terms of your experience or your college major. We're looking for smart people with good attitudes that are, you know, have a good work ethic. I mean, we'll teach you construction. We'll teach you everything else. But and then, you know, having an engineering degree is icing on the cake. But we have business majors, we have humanities majors, we have people of different backgrounds, and believe it or not, for the company, you know, I want some English majors in our company because it helps us become a better company. So it's not necessarily to say, and every company has different departments, but you as a mechanical engineer doesn't, you know, working for construction companies or working for different subcontracting companies is very, it fits, believe it or not. The key is that something that you want? And that's why one of the things that I want to make sure that students understand is really understand who you are, understand what you're looking for in terms of a career, not only a career, but the company. And if you can match that to a certain company, your future is going to be a lot more pleasant. Trust me, you know, to wake up every day and go to work, and if it's something you enjoy, it's not work. It's not work at all. If it's something you don't enjoy, I don't recommend it. Do something that you're going to enjoy, because if you enjoy it, you're going to do well in it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, another shameless plug. That's what I'm here for. So if any of you have questions about, you know, what are my interests, my values, what am I skilled at when I'm looking at these company websites or their social media, how can I get some clues on if it's the right fit for me? You know, truly, that's what I'm here for. And I'm happy to talk to you in my virtual office here. And so we're coming to the end of the hour, and I just want to open it up for verbal questions. So just again, for norm keeping, just please unmute your microphone. Feel free to do that. And then please say your name and then your question. And I do encourage you, please do ask questions.
Hi, I am Sujala again. So my question is, how does a typical day look like at KPRS?
I don't think there is a typical day, but we are a construction company. So what we do, depending on the project you're at, you're as an entry level, you would support the team and the team. So because we do construction projects, we do anything from a hotel to a big warehouse in the desert, to tenant improvements in big downtown areas, office buildings in Culver City, studios for Sony. So depending on what job you get on, typically most guys will start here from anywhere from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And they basically support a team of a project manager that's in the office here, or it could be a project manager out in the field. And it's a calling subcontractors, calling engineers, calling architects, and really as an entry level, believe it or not, you do a lot more work than you realize. You're not just stamping plans and doing mundane things. You actually become a very critical part of a project. But it's hard for me to say what a typical day is, because you could be out in the field walking the job, or you could be in the office doing paperwork, preparing for a meeting. So it's a lot of different things.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, I feel like you do have questions, but Martha actually did ask in the chat, let's see here. Do you think that international students have an equal opportunity as the local students in terms of getting an internship or full-time job? I can take this one, Paul, unless you have insights.
I do. Just real quick, it is hard for international students to get hired full-time because of the visa requirements and the sponsorship requirements. So that is tougher. Internships are easy. We can offer internships. We have a couple of international students that, believe it or not, in the lottery, they lost their position, and they've had to go back to, their country of origin. So it is tougher. It's not impossible, but it's getting that visa.
Yeah, that can be a challenge, and just as Paul said, there's considerations with CPT, OPT, H-1B, all the acronyms, and so it's a lot to navigate. I can help you with some of it, and then we have international student services for the rest in a lot of ways. But yeah, I do sympathize. So please feel free to reach out to me. I sent you a private message in the chat, and I'd love to hear more about what industry you're looking into. Brianne said I need to sign off. Okay, thanks so much for coming. She said, thank you so much for providing this meeting. It really helped clear up a lot of questions on moving forward. Okay, thank you so much, Brianne. All right, and so if we don't have any last words, Paul, just thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate your time. This has been great, really helpful for me, I think, to get your insight as someone who is out there still working, and the considerations that you have as a very high level leader at your company.
I did have one question concerning specifically reaching out to companies due to the coronavirus. Do you think it's good to assume that everything is going normally if you don't hear back from them about it?
You're talking about I'm assuming you're reaching out to them for a position, for a job or an internship of some type?
Well, I already have the internship. I already sent them a signed employment offer letter, and I was just curious because if you don't hear back from them, then it seems like everything might be going well, but at the same time, you don't want to be left out of the loop or anything.
Yeah, companies right now, they're basically, in all our readings, it's really important for us to maintain continuity, to maintain businesses, close as usual as possible, just to keep, because so if you haven't heard anything, I think it's a good sign. I think it's going to be business as usual for them. And they're, again, anticipating that there are no issues. And I'm assuming it's for this summer you're starting?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I don't see that as an issue for you if they haven't contacted you at this time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and if anything, Joshua, I sent you in a private chat, but I'll just say it for the group. I don't ever think it's a bad thing personally, maybe it's the English major in me, but to just send a quick email saying like, hey, really excited to start the internship this summer. Just thinking of all of you, with everything that's going on, and I just hope that you're all well. I don't think that's bad, just in a very empathetic way, not really asking anything, but just saying, hope you're all well, really excited to start in the summer. And I feel like that's perfectly fine to just show that you're thinking of them, you're still enthusiastic and still, happy to start. I don't think that's a bad thing. Maybe Paul, if you have, other perspectives.
Oh yeah, no. I think always reaching out is always impressive. It shows that you're thinking about your career. It shows that you're thinking about your job. So especially during these times, I think it's important that you do reach out and say hi. And
yeah, thank you so much. All right, thank you everyone.